afternoon, everybody. Isn't it great to hear the story from the perspective of a successful applicant? My name's Jane Welch. I'm currently the Associate Director of HR Advisory in HR. Lisa and Rebecca, you've already met this morning. I used to be the Manager of Workplace Relations, so the process for promotion under the Enterprise Agreement is very familiar to me. This afternoon, Lisa and I will take the last 15 minutes to give you an outline of what it looks like under the Enterprise Agreement, to the requirements under the Enterprise Agreement, and how your application is drafted to be compliant with that. So we'll take about 15 minutes and Lisa will cover off on how the application is processed online. So Claudia's helpful advice about how that looks from an applicant's perspective is very helpful. So again, Claudia has mentioned how she's put her application together, but these are the requirements under the Enterprise Agreement. So the page count can't be more than 25 pages, with the exception of teaching review program reports, which have been added as optional information that if you have them, you can also submit them and they won't go towards the 25 pages. So the only thing that has a particular page limit is the curriculum vitae, which can't be more than 6 pages, but the rest of the... oh, sorry, yes. Sorry, this one here. With a limit of 6 pages, but the commentary and the evidence of achievement that you can demonstrate over the last 5 years makes up the balance of those 25 pages. So the evaluation of teaching for 2 semesters within the last 3 years, including the evidence of CELTs and other quantifiable assessments. So the CELT data is in the original output and doesn't include student comments. The teaching portfolio that can't be more than 6 pages. I don't need to read out what you can read yourselves, but a publication list, evidence of the quality of the publications, and grant funding achievements, and the PhD students, which Claudia mentioned before, is also a component of the application as specified in the Enterprise Agreement. So these are the referee documents that are required. It depends on the level that you are applying for promotion at as to what the referee requirements are. So in relation to level B, you can choose either an internal or external referee. For level C, that is external only. In each case, the application is submitted with a head of school report. The relationship you have with the head of school is very important, not only for the head of school report, but also for the role the head of school has to play in soundboarding with you the strengths that you want to emphasise in your application when it comes to weightings. When it comes to level D and E, the application is supported by external assessors who are, for level D, one of them has to be from a group of 8, and for level E, one of the assessors needs to be from an international university. The assessors are arranged through HR as opposed to the referee reports, which are sourced by the applicant themselves. There is some flexibility if in the space of the assessor you're in a field of study that makes it more difficult to comply with this, and there's an ability for the DVCA to... Sorry, I wrote that down on my notes. The DVCA to come to an arrangement to accommodate the particular circumstances they're in. But otherwise, these are the requirements as spelt out in the Enterprise Agreement. If there are title holders in the room, there is a process for applying for promotion as a title holder. Level B, C or D is the request is made by way of the Executive Dean at the time of either the conferral of the title or the renewal of the title. In the case of level D, level E, there's a process under the promotions procedure. There's an exception if you're wanting to apply outside that cycle, outside the conferral or the natural renewal of a title, but that's at the discretion of the Executive Dean. Now, in relation to academic focus areas, you'll know that the promotions procedure refers to these 5 areas of academic focus. The significance here is for the weight that you can apply to your application to emphasise for the committee the particular area that you regard as the strength of your application. So it's an opportunity for you to document that. It means that if there's a clear and equitable process for all applications, so that everyone's referring to the particular areas that they regard as favourable to their application. And what we will now talk about is how the weightings apply. So the 5 focus areas are the teaching and research academic and education specialist workload. If you've been appointed into one of those roles, which under the enterprise agreement has a teaching allocation of up to 90%. A scholarly teaching fellow, so a fixed term category there of A and B academics. The scholarly teaching fellow has a teaching component of 75%. It's worth pointing out to you, if you don't already know, that once a person holding a scholarly teaching fellow contract is promoted, then they're no longer a scholarly teaching fellow and they fall into the workload allocation under the enterprise agreement generally. Then there are the research areas of either a research focused academic with a high research workload or the specific category of research only grant funded applications. This is the weighting schedule. There's a special category for special consideration, so staff members who have had their academic career interrupted by personal circumstances or extenuating circumstances sits outside this these weighting categories. But these are the 5 areas of focus and the respective weightings that you can apportion to your own application. So this is where you are the person who will know best how to weight your application. When you speak to your head of school, that's your opportunity to test with the head of school whether they also agree that that's your particular area of focus. In the case of education specialists and research focused academics, they can weight their application up to 90% in favour of either teaching or research. In relation to the research only grant funded, there's a 97% weighting for research in that category. The minimum levels there of 1%, it's a weighting, it's not a workload, it's a weighting, and it can look a little silly, but the requirement under the procedure is that each of these areas must be addressed in your application. So there's not an option of saying nothing in relation to these, but you can weight what you say at the minimum of 1% and put all your weight into the research there for the research only grant funded. The teaching and research academic workload is probably the most common application that we'll see, and in those cases you can look at the weight you want to attach to that by either going to a maximum of 60% for teaching and research or a maximum of 40% for administration or professional activity. I am reminded by Lisa that it commonly is the case that applications come in that don't add up to 100%. So I'm just sharing with you that if you can follow this, yes, just double check that you've done your numbers and it does actually get to 100%, not less than or more than that. So this is a scoring guide. Very simply, the applications will be scored by the committee members who form the promotions committee. They will not know how you've weighted your application. They will score, having considered the application individually on this scale, so with a 1 to 2 being a weak case that falls very short of promotion. Mm-hmm.
They don't know weighting, but do they know the category you're in?
They know which area you're, yeah.
Yes.
You've got that on your application.
Yes, yes. So this is the scoring guide that the committee work to when they're assessing the applications. Mm-hmm.
I didn't quite get that. The question was...
The question at the front was whether the committee will know what category of focus area that you've nominated in as your
you mean whether
promotion.
you're, say, an education specialist?
Education specialist, yes,
Okay.
yes, and they will know that.
All right,
they won't know within that category the weight that you've given the respective areas of endeavour.
They will or they won't?
Will not.
No. Okay.
No.
Do you get a score for each of the areas, like the teaching, research,
Yeah.
admin?
Maybe the next slide, no, this slide will tell you how this works. And then I have 3 slides that give you a bit of a comparison. It's the same academic, but through 3 different lenses. So we'll perhaps come to that later. This is the process for the committee members. They'll score the application without knowing how you've weighted the focus areas. HR applies the weightings to the score by applying a arithmetical formula. And then the weighted score will be used to score the applicant at the end of the day to determine the outcome of the application. If that score is 8 or above, if it's above 8, the application is deemed promotable. If it's less than 8, more than 7, the committee will further moderate the application. So it won't. There will be a further discussion amongst the committee members. If the score is less than 7, the application is deemed not promotable. So the committee itself, the promotable score comes from a committee outcome where the majority of the committee members have all scored the applicant as 8 and above. I can show you that through here, which is... So these are 3 slides which just show different weightings for the same Level C promotion. A committee of 5 members. Committee number 1 scores each across the 4 areas. The individual weighted average score has had the weightings applied to it to have 8.2, and at the end of that process, the 8.1 is the weighted overall average score. It's above 8, so the applicant is promotable. In this case, they are a teaching research academic. They've recognised that teaching is their strength. So when the committee members all rated and scored this applicant at 8 or above, then the weighting has worked in their favour because they've realistically recognised that teaching is their strength. In this case, administration has been weighted as the strength of the applicant. They would have been better back here, but it hasn't dropped them below 7. At 7.9, the committee will moderate the application, go back and have another look before they determine whether the applicant is to be promoted. And the last example this one has different scores. So this applicant is not promotable. They've not only scored below 6.8, but there aren't 3 committee members who've ever considered this applicant to be an 8 or above. And in this case, yeah, they've probably done, it's probably a reflection of the strength, yeah. So that's what the committee does. That applicant would not be successful. I'm happy to stop and take questions there. I'm about to hand over, and I'm conscious of the time, that Lisa is going to walk through how the process looks to you online, which I suspect is a very important thing to do. So I'll be happy to take questions when we
Can I just
finish.
quickly ask where the committee members come from?
So for level B and C, the convener, sorry, that one. Yeah, thanks. The convener of the committee is the exec dean of that faculty, and the other committee members are nominated by the exec team, so they might be heads of schools, discipline heads within that faculty. So it's for level B and C.
Thank you.
Yeah, we put the committee membership lists on the website, so you will know who's on your committee. Yeah. It won't be before you put in application, no, generally. It could be up before the closing date. They're just being confirmed at the moment and locked in now, so hopefully. So on the Academic Promotions webpage, this is what it will look like to apply. So you go to your level, this is level B highlighted, and you have these buttons available. They'll only be available when the call's gone out and the campaign's live to apply. So also on the academic promotions page, we've got the schedule for the year, checklist, how to download the CELTs, etc. And the committee membership will also be on there under the overview tab when that's confirmed. So when you click on apply now, that will take you through to the online application process, which is actually used for the recruitment at the Adelaide University. It's the same system, but we use it for the promotions applications. Once you've put in your ID and password, you can save and exit at any time. And if you want to go back in, just go back in as an existing applicant, just put your password in, you can just continue where. So you don't have to complete it all the first time you go in. So this will take you, as I said, through to register with your email address. And it's really just steps you through step by step, entering your details. Pretty straightforward. Levels, a date of last promotion, etc. All this information is just used for our benefit. And then it will take you through to the weightings table that's been discussed quite length today. So you just, the bottom here is just cut off, enter your weightings manually for each of those categories according to which focus area you're applying under. And then I think this is the bit, Claudia, that you said was a bit confusing. So you can complete your application as one document and upload the whole document as one, or you can choose to upload individually with your commentary, which we now have a template for. It's just addressing the 4 headings, the evidence as one document, CV. I think, like Claudia said, if you read through it, it is actually quite self-explanatory, but it's just taking the time just to make sure. And you can always send me an email or phone me, and I can just check through to make sure everything's there before you submit it if you're a bit unsure. And the special consideration form too also gets uploaded at this point once that's been signed by the DVCA. And then it takes you to the final page of submission. So before you get to this page, you can save and exit at any point, like I said. But once you've submitted, then there's no going back in to change anything. That's submitted to me. So yeah, if you have any questions, just give me a call or email me, and I can step you through anything that does seems a bit confusing there. Is there any questions? Yeah.
Lisa, can I say, so if we put in some weightings at the beginning, and then by the time we get back to get to the end of our application, can we go back and
Yeah, you can change that. Yeah, you can just go back in. Yeah, as long as you haven't pressed the submission button, yeah, you can change anything. Yeah, but have a discussion obviously with your head as well around those weightings. Sorry.
So, Lisa, with this application, so the reference reports and the head of schools report, will that be included in this?
Yes, you upload those as well. Yeah. So you upload those
Is
yourself.
that 25 pages?
No. So the referee reports and head of school report are not included in that page count, but the CELTs are. So
So you have to decide really what information you put forward.
yeah. So the CELTs you have to cover 2 semesters over the last 3 years, and a little cheats way, I guess, is that you can put 2 CELTs onto 1 page landscape just to give you a bit more space. I do recommend that you do that if you're running out of space. Yeah. Sorry.
With special consideration, is it still that you can only put in 2 areas?
Yeah, you can address only 2 if that's what you wish to do, or you can still address all 4, but the committee will take into account your special situation circumstances, and you can extend that 5-year period for the amount of career interruption you've had on a 1-to-1 ratio. But that goes by your exec dean, I think, then approved by or not approved by Professor Quester as the DVCA. And that has to be submitted before with your application, so can't be submitted after. It has to be approved prior.
Does that take very long?
No, she's really quite quick at responding to those. Yeah, but obviously give a bit of notice. Don't do it the day before the applications close. Yeah.
Sorry, also Lisa, with the 5-year period.
Yeah.
Is that a sort of flexible time frame, or strictly from
If you're
12
not
to 17 or 11
Yeah, it's pretty strict, yeah, to the date. So it's 5 years prior to the date of application.
Yep.
Yeah. So which is the closing date, yeah. Yeah, so 22nd of May I think is closing date, so 5 years prior to that. I mean, I don't think they'll look at a day or two, but yeah. Sorry, did you?
So for the focus areas, how do I select, say, in the last 5 years, half of that time, I did the research only, it's 100% research, and then I just get to like 40-40 for research and teaching?
Yeah, so it will be what the last 5 years mainly reflects, because that's where you're going to be providing the evidence. So you'll need to have a conversation with your head of school and get some advice on where they feel that which category will suit you best.
So that's the mutual agreement with the head of school?
Sorry?
So it's a sort of mutual agreement with the head
Yeah,
of
well, it's not. It's your decision ultimately, but it will, because they're more familiar with your work as well. So have that discussion and work out what focus area is going to suit you best for the last 5 years, because that's where you'll be providing your evidence.
Okay, so that's not restricted by my current role, right?
It doesn't. What? Sorry.
It's not restricted by my current role?
No, no. You're evidencing the previous 5 years. So. Yeah. Anybody else? I need to wrap up, I think. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to email me or just give me a phone call. And if I can't answer them straight away, I will get back to you within a few days. So thank you for coming.